Hello everybody, it's Wyvern here with another bit of Total War Warhammer 2 Quick Match gameplay. This time around we are on the Doomglades playing as the Dark Elves against the forces of the Beastmen. And for this match, I wanted to try out a bit of a light sort of kiting build I've seen some other players use as well, and seen used against me a few times, relying on Blackrock Corsairs, but with a little bit of a twist. I decided to run a Kharybdiss and some more stable or stationary troops in support. So for my lord here, I decided to roll with Marathi. She is up on Sulafet, so she's got her good old mobility and flight and all that good stuff. Of course, a whole bunch of debuffs as usual: Heartrender, Darksword, Enchanting Beauty. Might cost Miasma to try to control fast, harass Cav, or just poke away at units. It's basically like a mini Fate of Buna. Over time, you can get a lot of damage done, even to a unit like Bestigors or Black Orcs or something like that. It's a dirt cheap spell, and you can do quite a bit of damage over time. Do keep in mind it's only 5 wounds of magic and pretty spammable. We do have Soul Stealer, of course, for the heals, Wand of Kraydon for the bombardment, and Doom and Darkness, because I wanted to see if I could force a tear out with the help of the Kharybdiss, of course, which does have Abyssal Howl, Fear, and Terror. Feel and Terror. It's got all the feels, man. But in all seriousness, it does have a pretty crazy set of debuffs. Front line here, a bunch of Blackrock Corsairs with handbows. These guys are a decent unit. They're going to be able to poke away at the lightly armored Beastmen troops. And if my opponent tries to catch me, they do have 40 speed, which, if we compare it to Bestigors, they're just a smidge slower than Bestigors and Gorherd, so they should be able to kite for quite a while. And honestly, even if these guys get stuck in close quarters, they'll do okay against something like, say, Gorherd. Certainly they might not have the HP pool or the melee defense, but they do have respectable melee attack, weapon strength, and armor. Behind them we do have some Dread Spears, just there to soften up the blow if my opponent tries to push in, just something to protect against Cav. A single Kharybdiss to provide the Fear, Terror, AP, and Anti-Large, and then the Sisters of the Singing Doom to provide additional Fear and Terror, but more importantly, the Rampage from the Madness of Cain. On the periphery, we do have 2 units of Doomfire Warlocks, 1 normal, 1 Slash's Harvesters. These guys will do really well against Centaurs, besides the Regiment of Renown, of course, the Sons of Goros, and otherwise they can always rush out, try to shut down the Hounds that might be trying to harass, try to shut down more Raiders, that sort of stuff. Now for my opponent, he did roll with Khazrak, 1 eye here on his Chariot, and you can see he's sitting around here doing nothing. He does have the Deadly Onslaught as well as Apocalyptic Vision. Alongside him, a Brave Shaman of Death, who does have the full selection of spells. Once again, guys, a bit of a mistake here. He doesn't have the he doesn't actually have Jagged Dagger, which is a little surprising. That's a really useful item in my opinion for the Winds of Magic. But if you're running a caster, don't pick all the spells. If you're a little bit unsure, sure, bring a few more spells. Sometimes you might want to even bring like 4 or whatever, but really, there's no reason to have all 6. You're not going to get used out of that many. For his front line, my opponent has a mix of Bestigors as well as Gorherd with shields, a few Gorherd in reserve, some Ungor Spearsmen with shields in the back, providing some anti-large support. Minotaurs with great weapons here in the front line, ready to poke away at large, and then 3 Ungor Raiders. And these guys surprisingly decent against Dark Elves because Dark Elves don't have the range to really shut them down. On the flank, my opponent does have these Chaos Warhounds with poison, as well as these Centaurs with great weapons, who are sallying out to do a little bit of harassing. But honestly, against the reasonable survivability of the Blackrock Corsairs, they're not going to be able to do that much. They'll get a few kills here and there, but in return they're going to get shot pretty badly. Marathi's going to come in, she's going to do some work here, she's going to pick off a few models in fact, and my opponent definitely coming out the loser in this exchange. Not really what you want to be doing. It's great to get early damage if you can get it cheap, but with this sort of situation, he's lost a lot of HP on the Chaos Warhounds. He's already lost a few models on the Centaurs. He's actually going to lose a few more before he manages to extricate himself. The Doomfire Warlocks, of course, once they get the snare there, they're doing poison damage. They're preventing these guys from escaping easily. And these guys are definitely struggling. And if their leadership drops too low, they're also going to start losing their ability that gives them extra mobility. They're going to start losing Primal Fury. Regardless, my opponent does push out with the Minotaurs, and of course we're not going to allow that to catch our Doomfire Warlocks. That would be a disaster. But this does mean that these Minotaurs are now exposed. We're able to pound them a little bit with our Corsairs, which once again, these guys have only 35 armor, very nifty target. You can see they're getting whittled down pretty heavily here. Obviously, Blackrock Corsairs, not sort of an amazing unit that's going to burst down someone like, say, Waywatchers will annihilate a unit in a single volley. But over time, they'll do a lot of work. And you can see these guys have already lost about 1/3 of their HP in just a few seconds. And now we're able to pull back, and we haven't lost too much. In the meantime, we have whittled down these Bestigors a little bit with our Melkoth Miasma. And we're kind of pushing forward. We're looking to poke a little bit. We're looking to draw out a line here. Start poking some shots at these guys. Try to whittle them down a little bit. And slowly but surely soften my opponent up. And you can see another Melkoth Miasma going down to the Bestigor herd. And if we look at the damage here, you can see it does add up. It's like 60 to 70 damage a tick. Not bad, honestly. The Hounds do try to push in to be a bit of a zoning tool, but It's just not going to work. Over here, Purple Son of Zeru's trying to go down the Dread Spears, but we simply push forward a little bit. You really don't want to pop vortexes like this too early, because otherwise you'll get screwed like that. But regardless, my opponent here trying to pick apart my Blackheart Corsairs, but really Ungor Raiders aren't going to be able to trade that well into the 80 armor on these guys. And over here, the Hounds actually are going to get caught. They actually accidentally run into the Doomfire Warlocks while my opponent was trying to run away. And so they're going to get torn apart pretty bad. The Doomfire Warlocks, of course, are basically built with their Cotton Candy Blast. They're basically built to destroy units like the Poison Warhounds. Unfortunately for me, my opponent does drop a Spirit Leech over here on the Dread Spears. Bit of a mistake. You do want to use other spells. And honestly, you don't really want to focus the Dread Spears. In this situation, Spirit Leech on the Kharybdiss, for example, could actually be devastating. Another Melkos did go down the Bestigors, and it's a bit of a skirmish game right now. But finally, I do decide to go a little bit risky. We're going to dive in here, trying to get some damage in on the Centaurs with Grey Weapons in a bit of a greedy play. We are able to whittle them down a whole bunch, drop their leadership a lot. You can see they're just tanking right now. But unfortunately, my opponent does pivot and start fighting, so we're going to have to pull away to run. But we do manage to snare these Minotaurs. My opponent kind of struggling to keep track of both sides. Helping me a huge amount right now. You can see we do get a nice little Soul Stealer here, just nuking these units down, and then we do swing around and push into the back line. In the meantime, over here, the Minotaurs are going to be forced off decisively. They're down to 7 models and almost no HP, 1,000 HP, and the Spears are going to come in here to play catcher and deny these Goreherd and the Ungors the opportunity to push through. In the meantime, the Doomfire Warlock's kind of being misused here, to be quite honest with you guys. I honestly should have been a little more cautious, but we do manage to break those Ungors, remove that threat from the field. The Centaur's basically gone. And Kazrak trying to be a little bit impactful here, trying to do something. But unfortunately, Marathi's there. Marathi, not a bad assassin against large, especially his Chariot. Chariots aren't really built to do sustained fighting or lord fighting, and so he's not going to be able to do too much. In the meantime, the Goreherd here being pincered from the flank by the Centaurs. Not the Centaurs, the Blackheart Corsairs. And Marathi diving in, doing a bit of work, doing some damage. And although these Centaurs are going to push through, they're going to get caught up by the Dread Spears. And in the meantime, the Witch Elves, the Sisters of Sling and Doom, collapsing on this pocket and starting to do some nasty work as a Soul Steer comes down from Marathi. In the meantime, on the periphery, the Slaanish's Harvesters and the Doomfire Warlocks just running amok, annihilating the backline, tearing through the Ungor Raiders, who really are not built to survive this sort of combat. The explosive damage on the Doomfire Warlocks is just so good. Now the Minotaurs are going to countercharge here, and of course, because we didn't get a charge, they're actually going to do okay. But when push comes to shove, we do just drop a Murder of Pain on these guys, reduce their melee attack to probably near 0, even with their bonus versus large, and they're going to get torn apart. They really just can't hold up with their low armor. Here, the Bestigors doing their best, but we hit them with Melkos Miasma, just peppering them down. The Sisters of Sing Doom, surprisingly tanky, despite not really being meant to fight against, say, Bestigors. They'll do pretty well. And the Kharybdiss is in here. It is munching on Kazrak. It actually did a little bit of a tail whip there with its fan tail thing, doing a bit of damage. Kazrak really sad and at this point just depressed and just runs away. At this point, my opponent in a bad spot. The Dread Spears here being beaten down by the Goreherd for sure. But obviously, with Murderous Prowess procced, you can see we are getting quite a boost to melee attack. You can see up to 31 melee attack on a spear unit. For reference, units like High Elf Spears are sitting at like 20, I think, baseline. Empire Spearman, I think, is set at 20. So 31 melee attack on a unit of Dread Spears is pretty nuts. It means we're fighting pretty effectively here. And my opponent at this point scattered to the 4 corners of the earth, really just not in a position to consolidate and counterattack. We do have the light cav advantage because my opponent essentially lost his cavalry. His dogs are not positioned. You can see Fear and Terror kicking in. Bestigors, not the best leadership unit. They are an elite infantry for the Beastmen, but really just their leadership does let them down. It's one of the reasons this matchup sucks for against Vampire counts, Beastmen, because their leadership is just so bad. The Kharybdiss is able to just munch through them. Abyssal Howl, of course, destroying these guys' leadership. And although Kazrak is trying to come in to rally his men or his beasts, it's just not going to happen because Marathi is right there on the case. We do have still a decent amount of shooting. Marathi able to lay the smackdown on him. Getting those rear shots, the Kharybdiss diving through. It, of course, does apply poison as well, which helps in those sustained fights, even against infantry. And the Doomfire Warlocks here running away, escaping the very angry Goreherd, and kind of able to run around and do a lot of hurt. And at this point, my opponent's army, essentially, it's finished. He does have these Warhounds that he actually seems to have forgotten about, but Kazrak in full flight. At this point, only the Brace Shaman and a few Cav and Ungor units remaining. They're going to get a few volleys off here, but it's too little too late. And the Dark Elves are going to take the victory. So, the Kharybdiss actually doing some decent work. There's some decent terror work or fear work. As you can see the Sisters of Sing doing here, overrunning the Ungors. Really not where those guys want to be in life. But Yeah, fun build. I don't necessarily know if this would be, say, super competitive. Beastmen do have a decent chunk of equipment to sort of bring down a lone unit like a Kharybdiss. I think my opponent played a little more cautiously. His Ungor Raiders could have definitely torn apart the Kharybdiss. But Black Corsairs do give you some good ability to counter units like Bestigors. They'll actually pick them apart pretty effectively over time. You can just kite them, you can run away. With Marathi, you can poke away and chip away those sorts of units. And Dread Spear is a little bit of staying power. The Sisters of the Singing Doom give you a little bit of control. The Kharybdiss is a little bit of a AV pick. Honestly, the Kharybdiss here is a bit of a messing around, trying to make the leadership bombs work. Honestly, you could just do Marathi and the Sisters of the Singing Doom and get almost the same result. You're just not going to get the Abyssal Howl. Honestly, the Kharybdiss does cost like 1,600 gold, so if we talk about optimizing the build here, you might be better off bringing, say, a unit of Cold One Knights. Maybe drop some of the chevrons on these spearmen. I think these guys actually gained a chevron in the course of the game, but drop some of the chevrons we had here, and maybe drop an ability or something on Marathi, and swap out the Kharybdiss for 2 units of Cold One Knights or something. You might get a better result, especially because that'll give you some more staying power against Bestigors. The Kharybdiss certainly does give you poison, but when push comes to shove, it just doesn't do that much damage to infantry mobs. But it's a lot of fun to just try it out and make it work. For my opponent's build, my main critique or criticism would be his early deployment of the Minotaurs and the Centaurs with great weapons, trying to getting cheeky early damage. Of course, can be fun and it can be really useful in the long run, but really, I think you're just better off not. Just don't. Keep your Centaurs back and keep them in reserve, especially when you're not sure about what your opponent has. I had quite a decent chunk of my army hidden, so you can usually guess that your opponent isn't showing you everything. Dark Elves without light cav is usually a bit of a shocker, in my opinion. Minotaurs with great weapons should have definitely been hidden further back, so they didn't take that volley those volleys from the Black Corsairs. Let the Ungor Raiders trade shot for shot. You can use your Ungor Spears to zone out the Black Corsairs. You do outrange them with Ungor Raiders and just whittle them down. Even if your Ungor Raiders are not the most efficient at hurting Black Corsairs, just getting some damage in there, forcing them off is good enough. And then once you've sort of gotten rid of the Corsairs, then you can really commit with your Bestigors and your Gors and all that sort of stuff. Also, some better use of Spirit Leech. You could Spirit Leech Marathi, Spirit Leech the Kharybdiss, both much more valuable targets here. One of the reasons I don't think the Kharybdiss is that great as well. It is a very squishy and susceptible unit in the long run, but unlike, say, the Hydra, which does regen. But regardless, well played to my opponent, Muffin Sloth here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you found it entertaining and fun to watch. If you did, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, share, all that good stuff. If you have any comments, any criticism, any questions, as usual, do not hesitate to post them. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.